Hey guys, alright? Welcome everyone. In a dense and cold Alaskan forest, we see two children walking. Beckett, the older one, and Rowan, the younger. Suddenly, a bear approaches them and tries to attack, but Beckett shoots, scaring the animal away and saving their lives. The scene shifts to years later, where we meet Rowan, now an adult, who is on his way to meet someone. Waiting for him is a woman named Mary, who takes him to a lodging before learning more about the search for a man named Johnny. Rowan tells her to wait for 3 days, and then they part ways. Mary leaves some items with him, including a gun and a map of the area with a message from Johnny, saying he will meet them in 7 days. Now in a remote location in the forest, inside a cabin, a man is cutting meat from a bear when Johnny arrives with another animal. Seeing the bear his companion had caught, he realizes it's a female, which is not good. However, the man doesn't seem to care. They enter the cabin, and Johnny says they should stop hunting. But another man argues that the sheriff gave them a week to hunt, so they'll stay there until they finish if Johnny still wants to get paid. Johnny is against overhunting and decides to cancel the deal, but the man shoots him in the back. Fearing for his life, Johnny starts running and hiding. The other man goes out to finish him, but he can't find him. Suddenly, Johnny appears behind him and kills him with a knife. In the cabin, the remaining man awaits his partner's return but is surprised when a ferocious bear destroys the door and then kills him right there. In the town, Rowan is at a bar having a drink when a woman approaches him and lures him into dancing with her. Meanwhile, a man who had been watching them leaves the place. After the dance, they go to a room to continue the party, but when Rowan learns he has to pay for the night, he abruptly ends the fun and sends her away. However, she insists on being paid, as she can't leave with nothing, but he tells her to leave anyway. Rowan, looking out of the window, sees the same man from the bar being rude to the woman. Unwilling to accept that, he goes over and punches the man to defend the woman. Fortunately, the police arrive and break up the fight. Coincidentally, the officer is Beckett, Rowan's brother, but he still puts him in the car. Beckett, knowing the troublemaker, gives him a stern lecture, but soon releases him while Sheriff Sully takes the woman home. Beckett and his brother talk in the patrol car, revealing that Rowan was away from town because he had been in jail for shooting a man without being able to prove it was in self-defense. Beckett then says he'll take him home, but before leaving, one of Beckett's colleagues named Kaylee looks at him attentively. They have a short conversation and discuss Beckett's wife, who works monitoring hundreds of animals in the local forest using GPS trackers. Rowan is also asked about why he's in town, and he tells his brother that he just wanted to go to the Gray Maze, a location in the forest near the town, to honor their late father. In another part of the forest, two smugglers enter a restricted area, leaving their guard dog tied to the truck. They proceed to cut down valuable trees, but the noise drowns out the dog's barking, warning them of imminent danger. One of the men, pausing for a moment, looks in the direction of his partner, who is behind a tree, but the man doesn't move. He approaches, finding only the other man's severed arm, with no trace of the body. Suddenly, a huge bear appears and kills the other man. The next morning, we see Michelle, Beckett's wife, on a beautiful day. She is taking some animal photos and follows them to get a better angle. Back at Beckett's house, Rowan observes some of his brother's guns, but Beckett doesn't allow him to handle them. Beckett also mentions that he's going to meet his wife later, and that Rowan could wait for them, and they could go together. Rowan says he'll head out soon, not wanting to disrupt his brother's life. Before his brother leaves, Beckett hands a knife to Rowan and takes him to the trail of the Gray Maze. However, before parting ways, Beckett, suspicious of Rowan, asks what he's been up to, but his brother jokes and says everything is fine. Rowan walks a bit through the forest and follows the map's directions. At a certain point, he finds a car hidden in the forest foliage. Meanwhile, Beckett, the sheriff, and his team arrive at the scene of the previous night's incident, where they found human remains. They approach the gruesome scene and wonder what might have happened. Then, a man named Douglas says it was a bear and that the bear must have been desperate for some reason to have done that. Douglas asks Beckett if it could have been one of the bears he monitors, but Beckett says he has no monitored animals in the area. When he goes to check the tracker signals, he notices that there is an animal there. Beckett doesn't want Douglas to go into the forest and hunt one of his monitored animals, despite Douglas being an excellent hunter. Before leaving, Douglas warns them that the bear that did this is very dangerous and smart. Knowing that his wife is still in the forest, Beckett and Kaylee grab their weapons and head into the forest. Michelle is setting up some bear traps when she suddenly senses something approaching. She soon discovers it's a big gray bear. Startled, she steps back and accidentally triggers one of her own traps, becoming trapped herself. The bear then aggressively prepares to attack her, but luckily Rowan arrives and shoots the bear, scaring it away. When Rowan tries to help her get out, he realizes that she is deaf and can't communicate effectively. However, she manages to understand him through lip reading and instructs him to get the first aid kit. Meanwhile, on one of the trails, a police officer finds the hidden car, and the sheriff goes to Douglas' house to talk to him. Sully asks him to go hunting since Beckett went after the woman, and he needs someone to kill the beast. Before leaving, the sheriff is alerted about the discovery, and Officer Zoe says it's Johnny's car. Unfortunately, she can't say much more because the ferocious animal attacks her, and she is unable to fight back, resulting in her demise. The sheriff alerts Beckett about the danger lurking near him and urges them to leave the forest immediately. They continue their search and find the site of the attack, discovering evidence that she received help from Rowan. The sheriff says they need to assist Beckett because the danger is imminent, then he shares a story. Years ago, Beckett's father never allowed hunters to invade the Gray Maze because it was a sacred place for them. His friend Douglas, on the other hand, once brought some fellow hunters to that area, and one night the group was attacked. However, Douglas swiftly drew his knife and killed the bear with a precise blow to the head. Days later, returning from the hospital, he spent some time in the forest, killing many bears and leaving them out in the open. Afterward, he started taking hunters to the Gray Maze and making money as their guide, which is why Beckett's father distanced himself from him. Beckett and Kaylee arrive at the campsite where Michelle is and he is relieved to see her. She tells them what happened and who helped her and points out where Rowan went. He is observing the vast Gray Maze and soon Kaylee approaches him, reminiscing about old times when they lived together and almost had a chance at love. Night falls, and in the distance, Douglas watches them with his hunting rifle. When Rowan returns to the group, he wishes to leave, but Beckett stops him and questions why he's there, also inquiring about Johnny. Rowan doesn't provide any answers, so the two start fighting each other. However, Kaylee fires a shot into the air, making them stop. Rowan then explains why he's there. Mary had called him and told him about Johnny, who was supposed to have returned a few days ago but hadn't. Mary asked Rowan to search for Johnny because she feared that if the police got involved, they would arrest him. He wanted to repay an old friend's favor. Rowan wishes to continue the search that night, but Beckett asks him to spend the night with them, and in the morning, he can continue. The group gathers, and Beckett checks his tablet for the tracked bears. He notices that a large number of them are leaving the Gray Maze, and Michelle adds that the animals are fleeing in fear, likely due to the bear that attacked her, which Rowan describes as the largest he's ever seen. Beckett asks for his brother's help to find and kill the right beast, not trusting Douglas to do it. At this moment, we see the gray beast, and it's still hunting. During the early hours of the morning, Rowan, feeling cold, enters Kaylee's tent to warm up under the blankets. Sometime later, they are surprised when the bear attacks them. They quickly exit the tent and fire at the animal but fail to hit it, although they manage to drive it away temporarily. Douglas, hearing the shots in the distance, awakens. In the morning, the group continues and begins the return journey to get the women to safety. On the way, they pass through a trail where the bear has left many dead animals. They stop at a stream, and Rowan suggests they go through the maze, it will be safer. Once they cross to the other side and reach the beach, they will notify Sully. Beckett accepts the suggestion, and they venture into the maze, trying to evade the bear, which is following them closely, tracking them like prey. While Sully gets a boat and heads toward the vicinity of the Gray Maze, the group continues their journey. Suddenly, they hear gunshots nearby and investigate, finding Douglas, who has killed a bear with a tracking collar. They are not very happy about him being there but are informed about what is happening and what they are about to face. When Beckett checks the collar's recordings of the animal, he discovers that it had been previously attacked by the giant ferocious bear that's terrorizing the forest. The group continues without Douglas, but the bear is on their scent, and Beckett, seeing it, fires and tells everyone to run. Unfortunately, Kaylee stumbles, falls, and rolls into a log, impaling her leg on a wooden stake. The group quickly rushes to her and tries to help, but they hear the bear's roar nearby. They hurry to remove the leg from the stake and then bandage the wound. Rowan and his brother carry Kaylee in their arms and soon stop at the river to try to communicate with Sully, but there is no response. Later, we see Douglas following the bear's tracks, a massive footprint on the ground. Meanwhile, the group continues their journey, and Michelle spots a cabin nearby, so they head there. When they enter to check the place, they discover it's the hunter's cabin, and they're all dead. They leave the place but find Johnny nearby on a tree with a torn-off leg, realizing he was killed by a gunshot. Douglas arrives at the scene and says he had nothing to do with it, adding that the hunters had sought him out, but he had declined. Douglas suspected that what the hunters were planning was too cruel for him and even instructs Beckett to question the sheriff about it. Not working together, Douglas leaves them again. The group, tired and with Kaylee injured, decides to camp for a while, even though they are at risk of a new attack. Inside the tent, Rowan talks to Kaylee and explains the circumstances that led to his imprisonment. In the same year as his arrest, his mother had a health problem, and due to his own circumstances, he couldn't help her. So, one day, he met Johnny, who was a nice guy and helped him find a job by introducing him to an acquaintance who needed a guide for smuggling liquor. Needing the money, Rowan accepted the job, but they were ambushed by state troopers. In a shootout, he took the money and fled into the forest. However, he saw a wounded trooper about to be killed by a smuggler, quickly drew his gun, and killed the man, saving the officer's life. Unfortunately, he was surrounded and captured without being able to explain his motives, so he lamented not being able to save his mother. Learning the truth, Kaylee mourns the loss of her friend and the time they lost together. Beckett, outside, overhears their conversation and reflects on this truth. In another part of the forest, we see Douglas still in pursuit of the beast, where his horse suddenly senses something nearby. Douglas grabs his rifle, and then gunshots are fired. Hearing this, the brothers run to help, knowing it was Douglas, but they first see his frightened horse. When they reach the location, they find bloodstained clothing and the hunter's glasses, but no sign of him. Suddenly, the women scream in fear, and they quickly return to them. Rowan decides that he will stay and draw the beast in another direction while Beckett takes the two women to safety. Beckett is not happy about it but allows his brother to proceed and hands his gun to him. Rowan injures his hand and leaves a trail of blood for the bear to follow. This plan seems to work as the bear is not too far away and detects the fresh scent of blood. Rowan hides and waits for the animal to pass. However, he misses the first shot because the bear slinks behind the trees. He tries to follow it, but the animal disappears from his sight, only to reappear and approach him. Rowan falls and leaves his gun behind but continues running. The ferocious bear closes in on him, almost catching him. Fortunately, near the river, Rowan jumps into the water, and the bear doesn't follow. On the other hand, Beckett and the two women stop to see if they hear anything, and they suddenly see the bear in the distance. They run as fast as they can. Beckett carries Kaylee on his shoulders but slows down. Michelle, who cannot hear them, runs ahead, ending up lost in a dense, foggy forest. She walks a bit to try to find them but can't. Instead, she is found by the approaching beast. When she turns around, the animal focuses on her and roars. She falls, and the bear moves towards her. Thankfully, Beckett arrives, firing his weapon but failing to deter it. They are fortunate to reunite with Douglas, who is still alive despite his face being torn by the bear. Even with his rifle, the bear attacks Douglas relentlessly, and although he manages to injure it, he eventually runs out of bullets. The bear kills Douglas. The three take the opportunity to flee from the bear and continue until they reach the river's beach, where Sully's boat is anchored. Sully suddenly appears and is questioned by Beckett. However, the bear shows up and attacks them, grabbing Sully. Beckett boards the boat, grabbing 2 gallons of fuel to try and fend off the beast. Rowan, who escaped narrowly, appears nearby and rushes to help the sheriff. Unfortunately, the man is bitten on the face and dies. While Rowan lures the bear, Beckett surrounds the animal by throwing fuel around it. Fortunately, they succeed in setting it on fire, creating a circle of flames and trapping the bear inside. The group returns to the boat, but suddenly, the bear breaks through the flames and heads in their direction. Without any firearms to defend themselves, they are thrown out of the boat by the bear's immense strength. While Beckett goes to help Michelle, Rowan sees the bear going after Kaylee. He grabs his knife and runs desperately to try to save her. He strikes the massive animal with the knife, but soon receives a counterattack that makes him lose the knife, which falls into the water. The bear begins to attack Rowan ferociously, but by sheer luck, he manages to get away from the animal, although it proves futile. Beckett then tries to help him with an axe, but receives a blow from the bear that throws him far away. The ferocious animal goes after Rowan to finish him off, and at that moment, you can see the water turning red with blood. Fortunately, Rowan manages to retrieve the knife and plunges it into the neck of the ferocious animal, thus putting an end to the giant gray bear. The film then ends with the group celebrating their victory, and they subsequently return to the city safely, knowing that the Gray Maze will finally become a peaceful place again.